it. So here we are now, and I'm a New Jersey Devil, and me and my family couldn't be happier.
And so we begin the show with our director of scouting, Craig Button. We're going to talk about this deal. And Craig, at the deadline, we talked about this possibility of Markstrom maybe going to the Devils. And at the time, you were somewhat hesitant about the Flames turning over the #1 goalie job to Dustin Wolf on a full-time basis. So 4 months later, how did you feel about the trade on Wednesday?
Yeah, under ideal circumstances, I think that Dustin Wolf would have really benefited playing behind Jacob Markstrom. I saw what happened in New York with Igor Shesterkin benefiting from playing behind Henrik Lundqvist. And I thought a similar scenario would be really beneficial, not just to Dustin Wolf, but to the Calgary Flames. But the fact of the matter is that the ideal situation didn't seem to present itself for the Calgary Flames. And when you are looking with a player that has a full no-move clause, where he wants to go is really a big determination. Craig Conroy, there was much talk about other teams that may have been interested in Jacob Markstrom, but you just heard Jacob talk about, something that made the Calgary Flames comfortable. And I think getting a big, strong defender in Kevin Ball is something. He's a regular player. He's a hard player to play against. The first-round pick in 2025 becomes a factor. But now the future in the net is being established, and that future is Dustin Wolf. And certainly Dustin Wolf has done everything you could ever ask a goaltender to do at the levels below the NHL. His opportunity now comes with the Calgary Flames at the NHL level.
You talked about what the Flames get back. That 2025 pick is top 10 protected, Craig. I know that's going to be a real strong draft, so then if they decided to kick it down the road, it would be 2026. Overall, you talked about the no movement clause. That obviously is a factor, but are you happy with what Craig Conroy got in exchange for his goaltender?
Yeah, I'm going to go two ways here, Jay. The first place is, a new arena is coming to Calgary beginning in the 28 season. And I think that when you look at the moves that Craig Conroy has done with his unrestricted free agents, getting draft picks in 25, getting draft picks in 26, it really continues to point towards the opening of a new building when these players will be 3 and 4 years into their careers from being drafted, and setting up your team to be in a space where you can be competitive and they're ready to come in and play in a new arena. That's number one. Number two, and this is always fascinating to me, when I hear, and I heard this about Chris Tanev, the Calgary Flames undersold on Chris Tanev. Do you really think, Jay, that Craig Conroy turned down a first-round draft pick and a regular roster player for Chris Tanev? Do you really think that there was a better deal out there for Jacob Markstrom considering that he had a no-move clause? There wasn't. And the fact that people get out there and say, they sold low on Chris Tanev. This isn't a great deal for Jacob Markstrom. This is the marketplace. And Craig Conroy understands the marketplace, and he made a deal that satisfies not only the understanding of the marketplace, but also understanding where their team is at and where they want to be when that new arena opens. So I would say that with the defense core being built up in a lot of different ways with a lot of different types of players, that's going to be an area of strength. They have some good young players up front. And as you just pointed out, they have a lot of draft picks and a lot of opportunity to add more skill into the lineup through the draft.
And Craig, as you know, there was another massive trade on Wednesday, and the trade was 1-for-1. The Kings traded Pierre-Luc Dubois to the Capitals in exchange for goaltender Darcy Kuemper. Dubois just completed the first season of an 8-year, $68 million extension he signed in June of last year after being traded to LA from Winnipeg. Had a not such a great first season with the Kings, joins his fourth team in just 8 seasons in the NHL. As for Kuemper, he lost his starting job to Charlie Lindgren this year. He's entering the third year of a 5-year contract he signed with the Caps in 2022. He was with the Kings previously as a backup to Jonathan Quick. First of all, at one point, Craig, and you and I talked about this before the show even started, there's a lot of speculation the Kings might just buy out Pierre-Luc Dubois' contract altogether. The fact that Rob Blake actually got a player for Dubois, gained some cap space, and really addressed the need, because the Kings did need a starting goaltender. Kemper's been good in LA previously. Overall, do you give Rob Blake an A grade for this deal?
I do, and I'll give him an A grade for a number of reasons. And you're a very, very kind soul, Jay. I say that on camera, I say that off camera, because you really are. But the bottom line is, for you to say that Pierre-Luc Dubois had not so great a season, that is the kind soul you are. Because what Pierre-Luc Dubois had was an abysmal season. It was awful in every single regard. And that was after Rob Blake had made a big trade last summer with the Winnipeg Jets to acquire Pierre-Luc Dubois and to sign him to that contract. I think it's always difficult for a general manager to stand up and go, we made a mistake. It didn't work out. Maybe it's our fault. Maybe it's Pierre-Luc Dubois' fault, but we're moving on. We're not hanging on to something that clearly didn't work. And so for that, that's a big A. Number two, we know that the LA Kings were in on goaltenders. We know that Linus Ullmark was potentially a goaltender that could have ended up in LA. But at the end of the day, what Rob Blake knew is he had to improve his goaltending. This is a very good defensive team, and Darcy Kuemper, who has shown that he can be a really good, solid goaltender behind a really good, solid defensive team, I think that carries significant weight. He's won a Stanley Cup, and I think the fact that he was in LA, and he's somebody that's known, and he's known to Bill Ranford. Bill Ranford, to me, there's no better goaltending coach in the National Hockey League than Bill Ranford. There's a few that are as good, but Bill Ranford also knows this goaltender too, and the fact that they play really good defense is something that I think is really important. The Washington Capitals were terrible defensively, just terrible, and I think that impacted Darcy Kuemper. So when you start to look at a situation for the LA Kings with Darcy Kuemper coming in there, Pierre-Luc Dubois going out, I think it's a recognition that it didn't work with Pierre-Luc Dubois. On to our next goal, on to our next objective. I think Rob Blake did an outstanding job in this regard.